You're listening to REIAcast, a podcast of the Southwest Florida Real Estate Investment Association. REIAcast brings together a variety of real estate entrepreneurs from all over the world to share tips and ideas. The core purpose of the Southwest Florida REIA is to help members become more profitable and successful through networking, education, and empowerment. Here are your hosts, Jeff Tamarello and Michael Lyons.
I'm Jeff Tamburello, one of the directors of the Southwest Florida REIA, joined by the other director of the Southwest Florida REIA, Mike Lyons. How you doing today, Mikey?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. So we wanted to talk today about 5 mistakes that investors make when entering the Southwest Florida market, because we watch this happen over and over again, that people come here and many of them are successful investors in California, in Connecticut, in Ohio, and Pennsylvania. But that doesn't necessarily mean, everything you know there and know well doesn't necessarily apply here, because real estate's local. And I mean, to talk about, local, like scrub jays are a problem with lots in Charlotte County. There are no scrub jays in Hendry County that I'm aware.
No. And then you mentioned Pennsylvania or investors from there. They're not like an active put up your shutters for a hurricane type state. So, they're coming.
The environmental, I'm sure they have flood zones. I'm sure there are issues with flooding, but they don't remotely have the problems we have. But
nope.
So, I mean, it's an important video. I'm honestly making this to try and help some people. So I've watched some people recently have some bad experiences in Southwest Florida flipping that had done a pretty good job outside of the state where they're from, but came down here and just didn't understand a couple of nuances that were truly important. So let's talk about number 1, ignoring local risk factors. Okay, flood zones. Let's talk about storm damage, and let's talk about insurance costs, because
no, and that's huge. I'll give you an example. Storm damage, I'm dealing with that now. I may or may not have owned a property before Ian. It may or may not have had damage. I may or may not have done work to the property without a permit. I mean, I'm not going to deny or confirm.
Feeling like you need to go stand in that corner behind you right now.
Yeah, and then come back after a while. But I mean, one thing the county I found, and this is multiple individuals, I went to go pull a permit to do electrical work, and they said, "Oh, wait a second, you did work during Ian or after Ian and didn't pull a permit." I'm like, "Nah, maybe or maybe not, but how do you know that? Why would you say that?" And then they have, like, with this aerial view of the property after the storm, I was like, "All right, well, that's fair. Send me the paperwork."
I guess you're right.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I can't confirm or deny that, but all right. So, I mean, but that was 3 years ago. That was a long time ago, and so again, if you buy a property that an investment property, you're looking to do work on it, and you don't know previous damage, storm damage that could have happened to it, you can open up a can of worms if you need to either pull a permit or do things. So if you're doing work right now and you're not pulling a permit, code enforcement is out, man. They were calm after the storms. They ain't messing around no more. So again, we have flood zones and storm damage, but like permitting for that stuff alone, you can double your costs on what your rehab is based upon that alone by finding out after the fact. So that's worth. It's one of the simple ways to do it is you pull the property up. Our in Lee County anyway, you can see every permit that's been pulled for the last who knows how long. So I mean, it's easy to determine whether or not it was done right. But if you didn't check that, you go buy something, you might be buying a much bigger project. And we buy property that's, rough to rehab it and either hold it or sell it. So that's normal. It's a normal investor thing to do. But do your research. If you don't know the area or whether or not it was done properly, you can really have a big problem on your hands. Huge problem.
I can tell you, facing that problem too. I'm in the middle. Group of us are in the middle of a rehab on a commercial building.
Yeah.
You know the building, but we're not going to talk about the building.
We don't talk about it.
You basically, when you start getting the friction from the county, private service, private engineer, pay the money, get them to sign off, because it's just better.
Mhm.
You can, it's just an easier life. Spend the money, get it over with, instead of trying to nickel and dime and do it yourself. I will share that with you. And let's talk about insurance costs, because a recent flip that my brokerage Steelbridge listed for an investor, when he bought it, I don't think he understood what flood zone AE really meant. Because like before Ian, especially years gone past, like I owned a house in North Fort Myers, I never understood why it was flood zone AE. It was off the interstate. But I mean, I think our flood insurance was like $400 a year. So
Mhm. It's
not that
cheap.
big of a deal. And it's kind of cool to have that additional something happens, we're good, because flood insurance, it's a complete expense until the water's in your living room, and then thank God you have it.
Yep.
But the insurance costs, particularly a lot of new investors coming into this market, the cheap stuff is usually flood zone A, older than 85. You can get some amazing, amazing buys. And mobile homes flood zone A, older on, say, Pine Island. You can get some amazing buys. But insurance is very problematic. Flood insurance is even more problematic. Now, if you raise it, it's not as problematic. I think the biggest value add on that property is elevation before you even discuss putting in the fancy gray speckled countertop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know,
Gray or white. I mean, whatever you
yeah,
want.
but
Yeah.
I mean, you always, it used to be the first thing I always looked at is I start at the roof and I go down. You know what I mean? I'm not going to improve a space with a shaky roof, because the shaky roof will ruin everything under it. But you
Right.
kind of got to also go up and down now, the elevation part. But on your insurance costs, you 100% need to get, before you close on a flip, you 100, or a rental, or even go under contract, get an insurance estimate. The insurance estimates you're going to get are going to be ballparks. Many times they end up a little higher,
Yep.
but we've got two corporate sponsors in the REIA that do a great job with that. They're both on the business director's website. You can call them up and they can at least get you a ballpark quote. And if you don't have an elevation certificate for the flood insurance, they're going to give you the worst case quote.
Yep.
You may get an elevation certain and maybe a little better. Sometimes they're on file. Newer homes are on file, but you 100%, if you're new to this area, you need to understand flood zones. And storm damage in many, many cases now means the FEMA 50. And
Yep.
you really need to understand how that's calculated and what it is. And then particularly, I'm looking at some houses trading that have had major flooding in Ian, minor flooding in two additional storms. And if there was two permits pulled and they somehow got through FEMA 50 on those two permits, the next one, you're going to be over the cap. There's no way you're not going to be over the cap. You're going to have to raise the house. So just raise the house. But the key to that's buy it right. If you buy it right, then who cares what Flint and Doyle charges? Because you've got a hardened asset that you don't have to worry about flooding on. But a lot of out of towners do not understand what that means. But the 50% rule is so big. I looked at a great buy. I mean, it was like, you want to use that old 70% of ARV on flips with rehab costs.
Mhm.
I'd have been 55 until I looked at it and realized the flames were going through the roof. Flames went through the roof. It wasn't just light smoke damage.
Yeah.
But
Minor smoke damage. Yeah.
I still think there was an opportunity to get it for the right price, for even to knock off the trusses off a third of the house. And you would have had to redo the trusses over the garage 100%, but probably you're going to end up doing the whole thing. But it, when I looked at what the structure was assessed for and what it's going to cost, even with an appraisal and all this stuff, and you can play that game, you were hitting the FEMA 50, you're going to have to raise a house.
Yeah.
So when you're done, it's a great buy, and you're going to get great numbers,
Yeah.
on a raised home.
Yep.
But if you don't have that factored into your buy numbers, you basically you're now an accidental landlord usually.
Yep. Yep.
So
Or you're
accidental
losing money.
landlord.
Yeah, no, you're losing money. Well, yeah, on that, when you went to the buy side of it, but the next mistake we discussed are going to discuss is overpaying based on season-driven comps. Jeff,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, our highest prices tend to come February through May.
Yep.
Okay, those are your highest numbers. So, and the best time to buy here tends to be August, September. Okay. And we have an inverse of the rest of the country. The rest of the country, when it's nice and warm, real estate trades at a slightly higher number because there's more buyers out there. For
Yep.
here, it's when it's cooler and everywhere up is the frozen tundra, there's more buyers here.
Yep.
So particularly if, I always group properties as, will this apply to a snowbird or is it purely a local property? Or, but if you say particularly you're looking at buying something in July because it's cheap and you're running 120 days worth of comps, the comps do tend to walk down a little bit in the heat of the summer.
Yep.
So unless you're going to hold until next February, which isn't a bad idea, if you've got particularly a property that would really appeal to a snowbird, then you just wait till the snowbirds are here. But if you're planning on doing that quick carpet and paint rehab and throwing it on the market, and you've got 3 comps from March, I think I would try and take and figure out the difference between last off season and this off season and apply that math so that you're not getting, you're not selling like the time to sell a 55 and up mobile home is that time frame we discussed. The heat of
Oh,
the
yeah.
summer is a really, really bad time. Although if you're wanting to buy one, that's the time, the heat of the summer. But yeah.
Well, I agree. Well, I'll also say too, and just a thought process of you got to buy right, but then when you go to sell it, if your game plan is to start advertising to sell your property in November 1st, why that those November and December, in my opinion, are the 2 worst months to put your property in the market and sell it because everyone's
will get a nice little run up a little bit in November, and then there's a little bit of a run from like Thanksgiving to about December the 1st and 2nd. December's not a bad month for closings, but you don't have like that same seasonal bump on pricing. But there is usually kind of a mad dash of people to get in before winter for tax purposes, so they have somewhere to be this winter because and that's another modality. Short-term rentals are getting a little cheaper in some cases, so you're going to see a little less people wanting to buy when they can rent it for cheaper. It's
Sure.
just simple math.
No, sure. Well, that it's interesting too. You mentioned up north, we'll say outside of Florida, the summertime is a busier time for real estate because it's cooler out and not everyone's inside, because of the snow. In here, you think people have been out of school that the summer months would be busy. And when you mentioned August, September being great months to buy, they really are. People are. It is not as busy here as it is during those other months, the January, February, March, April, May timeframe. Summer it does slow down, so buying that is the perfect time to do it during those months.
Although when the time we should be buying, I'm on the front of my boat looking at the fish houses.
Yeah, that's I suffer from the same addiction on being on the boat during those months.
Although you do get some fresh fish out of that day. So
hey, you gotta eat. We gotta eat, man. That's how I justify it. So
let's talk about mistake number 3. Okay, underestimating holding costs. Things take longer here than they do in Pennsylvania. I'm sure California takes even longer than here. So for a Cali investor, they're probably laughing at us, but I can't imagine what permitting's like in LA. What it takes to do something, and like you and I, we do stuff in Valdosta. Permitting isn't really a problem there. I mean, when we put a mobile home on a lot, and basically the inspection was, hey, it looks like it's on your lot. Good job, guys. Looks
good. Yeah, you guys did great here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a completely different world than what we deal with here. But underestimating your holding costs, okay?
Yep.
Property taxes are higher, insurance is higher. I don't really know about water and electric bills. I don't never really.
And that depends on usage. But I'll mention one thing too: property taxes and go to insurance premiums. So let's say it depends on what you're buying. If you're buying a property to flip it, within a few months, different story. But when you buy a property and it reassesses, the following year, depending on some factors, that cost is going to go up. I would say in a lot of cases too, when people underwrite or investors underwrite the deal, they're looking at best case scenario, which is the worst thing you can do. What you need to do is, at worst case scenario, am I making money? that's the safest way to underwrite, or somewhere in the middle. I mean, a lot of times investors will go, if this all works out, I can make X. Well, that's probably not going to work out, and you're not going to make X. So let's be realistic.
Well, the optimistic side is what puts you working on the deal.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I spend 80% of my underwrite on the downside, because if you eliminate the downside, the upside should be there. You know what I mean? It's just really simple.
So true. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that holding cost is huge.
Sorry. If you have a rehab that is permitted, what do you think? Add another 3 months?
I was going to say 4, but yeah, 3 months at least. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't want to totally knock the county. I think they've got some really good people working there, but it's a lot of red tape for stuff that I think they should be more streamlined. So it slows down the process.
Well, Lee County, when they walk into the office, my joke, there's FEMA sitting behind their desk watching every keystroke here lately. So FEMA's breathing on them very hard.
100%.
So leave them alone, FEMA. Go back.
Yeah, FEMA, don't be a jerk.
Yeah. Nobody likes you guys.
That's good.
But FEMA's putting a lot of heat on coastal Florida counties right now. So it just is what it is. So if you have a permitted rehab, and if you think you're going to get by without it, chances are you're not. A bunch of people just raised a bunch of mobile homes in St. James City. Really affordable price. I've seen them. I know somebody that hired the guys. They did good work, but they didn't pull permit. Now, by the time you get done paying the fees, the engineer, all the stuff you need to, get out of hot water, you're going to be fine because the guy raised it for so much cheaper than most of the locals that the local contractors are seething with me saying that. But even with taking the hits that these people took, they're still probably 50% cheaper than what they would have done.
Yep.
So let's talk about mistake number 4. This is the real one. Trusting the wrong people.
Happens all the time. Well, I think too, there's something to be said about there are individuals that are fantastic at selling themselves, meaning charismatic, well-spoken. And again, not knocking that. That's a great talent if you have it. But there's a huge difference, for example, in working with you and I are real estate brokers, so we can knock other brokers and compliment them at the same time. There are some that know what they're doing. They know how to run numbers. They know what actual market value is, rent rates, everything that would be helpful in determining a good real estate investment. But there's a lot more, and I'm just speaking about agents at this point, that are in it for the sale. They'll do anything they can to get the property sold, which is, if you have somebody you're trying to get rid of a listing that you own, all right, maybe that's what you need. But if you need assistance with actual real estate investing on what prices are, what the cost is to rehab, is this worth buying? That conversation, will I make money? Worst case scenario, you got to trust the right person. And there's a lot of people that don't know the business, or they want to get into it, they don't have much experience yet. I just gotta be super careful who you trust. That's huge. What are your thoughts on that?
Here it is. My experience is telling people the truth. They just, a lot of them, real estate's a lot like the restaurant business. Okay. People take money from outside of there and bring it into that space because it's their passion. Everybody wants to, if you're a good cook, you want to open a restaurant. You want to show the world, it's your passion. You like feeding people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't mean if your spaghetti is that amazing that you're probably qualified to serve 300 people a night. It just is what it is. You know what I mean? It's just because you're, or same thing. If you have good taste and you like remodeling, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good flipper.
Yep.
So, but trusting the wrong people, I laugh because it's passion that tends to bring them here. Hey, it's paradise. I want to come to Florida. They've done a fishing trip. They had a great day in Margaritaville. Hey, let's do some business here so we can come back more. Yep. And it's, it's all positive intentions bringing them in. And then the first time you go, that house doesn't work because it's flood zone AE. Oh, this guy's negative. I don't want to talk to him, and I watched it happen many, many times. If the person that you're talking to hasn't once told you that's a bad idea, then
or disagreed.
They don't know, or they don't care.
Yep.
So
That's true. That's so true. Well, one thing I'll mention too, trusting the wrong people. And again, even if they say a certain thing, you don't know if it's totally true. But I do property management, and I don't ever want to bash my competition. I think that's bad business. I do think what we do is the best in the area. I do very truly believe that, but I know there's other companies that do it well. But a question I would ask is if you're going to hire an individual to manage your assets, for example, if they don't own any assets themselves, they don't understand, in my opinion, as well as they could, if they haven't done it themselves. So a real estate investor, if you want to buy a property, flip it, and go through that process, I would only hire someone that has had the ability to, it's done it before, been successful, can prove they've done it. And I mean, I would be part of the interview process when you're working with somebody. What have you done? Show me what deals you've done. Explain how this worked. So, I mean, that the trust part of it, trust really takes time to build, but you have to have done it before to really know what you're doing. I think learning and reading a book or going to a seminar and then trying to do it for someone else and spend someone else's money is a disaster in the making. I mean, you could get lucky, it could work out okay, but I would just be more trusting of someone who's done it, and really multiple times.
The ultimate question, Mike, what do you own?
What do you own? Yes. I've asked that to more than one person, one specifically that we're thinking of, and it was very offensive to him. That was not my intention. But if you don't own anything,
honestly, though, he went and acquired a cash flowing asset. So
right. After that conversation,
you're wrong. So no, it's sometimes motivation comes in the weirdest places. So, but it's trusting the wrong people, and it's hard to know. After action, if you are, I laugh because everybody tends to be, intertwined. You'll have a realtor and a wholesaler and a contractor that are all mixed in together, and they all hang out. And you don't really know that they have your best interest. At some point, get a third party.
Yep.
Hey, dude, can I give you $100 to evaluate something? Can I order a BPO just to check? Because the biggest thing, especially if you're thinking about flipping something or even renting it, okay? So many bad rents, especially you have these circuits that put out a lot of content, and then people talk to the investment counselors, and then the investment counselors are like, well, we've gotten $2,100 a month there in rent when we all know the rent's $1,800, but they put it on Zillow. They didn't do a background check, so they can say they got $2,100, and you know how long that tenant tends to last. The reason why they're paying $300 more than market because nobody else is going to rent to them for the right reasons. So, and the same thing with on a flip, the ARV and the rehab numbers. So, if it's an in-house contractor giving you the bid, this is our guy. He looks at all of our stuff. That's great. At least have a real contractor, not them. At least look at the bid.
100%.
You can do a walkthrough video of the house, man. Send them that YouTube link in the bid. Hey, tell me. Would you like to take a look at this and tell me your thoughts? Would you be interested in bidding this? And you're going to get contractors that will blow up the other guy, and just to get the work. But get that second opinion. Same thing. ARV is so mission critical. Get a BPO. I mean, if you don't know a market, paying for an appraisal is not even if desktop appraisal. And I didn't say AVM. We were at IMN recently, and one of the AVM guys was quite proud that they're 70% effective.
Yeah. Like 40% of the time you are wrong.
Yeah, you can be there with me on the other 30. Can I send you your capital call?
Yeah. Well, if you're playing baseball, 70% right at the time at the plate, that's a good percentage. That's not a good percentage in real estate. That's not what you want to do. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's Hall of Fame. Better than Hall of Fame. Yeah. So, no, that's awesome. Well, so mistake number 5, not knowing the exit strategy up front. And exit strategies, depending on the market too, can change. But having a game plan. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you 100%. And you better have go back to my days as a Marine. We always had the primary extract, the secondary extract, and tertiary extract. And number 4 was just, we'll figure it out. Run to the gunfire. That's where we all are. Pick us up.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? But you better have a primary exit. This is what I am here to do 100%. And then every flip personally, I underwrite as a long-term rental. So if something goes wrong and I'm stuck with this, can I afford to own this?
Yeah, no,
So
that's awesome. Well, one thing too, I'll mention, going along with this, know your exit strategy, know what you're there to do. It will be very difficult for you to be very successful at doing wholesaling, flipping, long-term holding, like doing all the things if you haven't done this before. So I'd have a focus. I mean, you mentioned know what you're here to do. Like, you can't do it all. I mean, and be really good at it, in my opinion, especially if you're just getting started. So, but having the exit strategy, in this list kind of discussed the flip, whether you're going to flip it, rent it, Airbnb it. I can't believe we made Airbnb into a verb, but just whatever you're going to end up doing. But have a game plan and know from the get go. And having a couple options too. If you can sell it, make a buck, or you want to hold on to it. Again, leaning towards, just me personally, I always lean towards holding on to it and getting paid for years to come off the same asset. That's kind of the game plan for every asset that I buy. I will flip some, but 90% of what I buy or more, I'm holding on to as long as I can, and getting paid from it. So that's important, super important. So.
Now here's our bonus tip. Okay, you can do all the due diligence in the world, and what brought to mind on this was the handyman. I found us off Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Did such an amazing job, and that's really sarcastic on
that
the.
Is as sarcastic as you can. Yeah, that was nice.
Skipping local networking. So this will be the self-serving part of the REIA video. Okay, you need to get and meet real people, whether it is going to a meeting like the Southwest Florida REIA meetup, whether it's going and hang out at Home Depot at the contractor counter and meet some contractors, or the beauty is, find like a bunch of open houses happening and then find the local watering. They'll all be there after their open houses, but meet some realtors, find the bar the realtors go to, something, meet local people, those local contacts, that local texture. Like I keep talking about this play I want to do in Valdosta because the Air Force Base is expanding.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know is the expansion is a jet that is loud. And I confirmed talking to people that fixed them that it is a very, very loud jet. So that may impact, and believe it or not, they publish the flight patterns. I found the flight patterns.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, if you get in here, it better be cheap, or it better be a guy that really misses the sounds of work that's going to rent it from you. So, because 8, 9, 10 times a day, this really, really loud jet's whipping over his rental.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
sure his wife and kids love it.
But local knowledge is, to sum up what you're saying, local knowledge is huge. And if you're new to the area, you don't have it. You got to network and meet people. I mean, the brief example I'll give is that, the office I bought up in Georgia and with a lot of investment property up there, I have 2 gals that work for me up there currently. They're both locals. They're fantastic. They know everybody. They know what areas to avoid. They know local knowledge that if I'm driving around, I'm going to have a decent idea, but I'm not going to know anywhere close to what they know. And any kind of networking and local knowledge is huge when searching an area. And you're not going to fly in a couple of times and go, yeah, I know what to do here. I mean, you really need the locals to help you out. You really do. And again, finding someone like we discussed before, finding people you trust. That part's.
If you could, one of the girls in question, let Lancy know we talk positively about her. I don't want her having my water turned off.
No, she's savage, man. Yeah, she will. I'll let her know.
Lancy's gangster, man.
Lancy will mess around. Oh yeah, you haven't paid your water? We're gonna shut that off. Yeah, that's very. She don't mess around, man. She's awesome. So
that was one of the smartest things you made was because she worked for I believe one of the counties, and so you instant local knowledge. You needed to hire somebody anyways, and you brought on what you didn't have. That's what networking's about, is going out and finding what you don't have. Like we always preach this at the REIA, you got 4 basic tools to play in this game. There's time, there's credit, there's capital, and there's knowledge. Okay. And whatever of those 4, if you have all 4, then get after it. If you don't have all 4 of those, then that's what partnerships are for. They need to be defined. They need to be documented. They need to be a lot of things, but if you don't have one of those 4 tools, then go find somebody. Like right now, the one thing I don't have is time.
Yeah.
Like I would love to have a young aggressive Thundercat that I could trust in my life to turn loose on some projects.
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is. So, I just joke as I sleep too much, I guess. I need to quit being a sissy.
Yeah. Hey, 4 hours is sufficient. Just yeah.
Well, young Jeff was all about that life, man. I'm starting to hit that 6 to 8, and man, that feels good waking up.
That's great.
So, but yeah, the skipping local networking, if you're getting into a market, and we always do those road trips to a market, try and plan it with some sort of a local meeting, some sort of a trade gathering. Is there a builders association? Does a realtor association have something going on? Are there, there's go to meetup.com. Bigger Pockets will list a lot of these. There's a lot of, and that's another great resource is biggerpockets.com. You can get on there and start asking questions. You're going to get a lot of, hey, buy my stuff, but you're also going to get some real advice in there too. Yeah. And conversations are huge. I mean, I've had so many conversations with people because of Bigger Pockets, and ironically, most of the pitches I don't need, but I tend to take something from every conversation that I can add to the stack. Hey, that guy's pitching this. He's actually got a point with why that is something to look into.
Yeah, networking's huge. I mean, people, I think it's definitely not a waste of time. It's who you know. If, for example, if you are doing some type of work and they know you based upon the networking, they're going to call you. I mean, there's networking's huge. I mean, it's just absolutely huge. So
if somebody needed to get a hold of you, Mike, how would they get a hold of you?
My cell, that's probably the best way. 239-560-6164. And then my email is mike@lionsrealestateinc.com. And that's LYONS.
If you'd like to get a hold of me, give me a call at 239-671-8248 or email me jeff.southwestfloridaria@gmail.com. That's kind of the email that I monitor. So if you're new coming into town, we be happy to answer your questions. If you're under contract on a deal, and I'm telling you, get a second opinion on the rehab, get a second opinion on the BP, get a BPO for the ARV. If you're buying a rental, call property management. Dude, can I give you $50 to write me a report, send me some MLS comps on what's renting around it? I cannot stress enough the amount of people that, especially, and you can correlate this, Mike, show up in your office ready to sign a property management contract, and the rent's $300 less than what they think it and what they got pitched.
100%. That happens to me almost weekly, where it's pitched from someone else. When I say weekly, I'm reached out to and say, what are your thoughts on the actual market of this? I'm like, that's not reality. So no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. That can mess up your whole cash flow. You're buying it with $300 to spare of cash flow, and if it's really $300 less, you're barely breaking even. And any expenses or hiccups, you lose money. So,
I mean, to end the video, negative cash flow will bring you sadness.
Yeah, negative cash flow is not fun. We can't say we're having a good time when you have negative cash flow.
It makes people sad, and no one wants to be sad. Enjoy it, Mike.
Hey, enjoyed it, man. Thank you.
This concludes this edition of REIAcast. Be sure to subscribe to receive our next episode. You can also subscribe at our website, www.SWFLREIA.com. See you at a meeting soon. Please let us know if you have a suggestion for a future episode.